Well, I'm Tim Walz. I represent Minnesota's 1st Congressional District that stretches from the South Dakota border all across southern Minnesota to the Mississippi River, and includes the cities of Mankato, Rochester, Winona, Worthington, and the bulk of what it includes is small towns and rural areas. One of the most productive agricultural areas in the entire country. Also one of the most productive economic areas in the entire country, not just ag-related, whether it be healthcare, research, and small businesses that are thriving. And so it's a singular honor to be able to represent them, and I think for me it always is a good reminder of where I come from small towns, from rural America, and very proud of that.
So you've obviously had experience working with rural Minnesota and with small towns. What are some of the issues that you see coming up in small towns?
Yeah, well, I think one of the things is educating people. The bulk of the population now, of course, over the last 100 years, shifting from rural areas to urban areas, is that rural areas are not failed urban areas. They are different. They are uniquely American in that people choose to live there both for the quality of life and for the opportunity. I think the challenge that come up is that by sheer economy of scale, it's more expensive to build a road to a smaller community. There's less ways to split that. It's much more difficult to run fiber optic cable to make sure we have high-speed broadband so that our businesses and our individuals can compete with anywhere else in the world. So I think one of the things we find is the remoteness poses a challenge basically on connectiveness, but the technology and some of the new ways of going about things have allowed us to overcome some of those. But that's one that doesn't go away. We have incredibly well-trained workforce. We have a work ethic in small town America, especially in southern Minnesota, that is second to none. And we have an innovation mentality of people who carved out a life on the prairie. Well, that's still in our genetics. That what we just need to do is we just need to be connected to the marketplace. We need to be connected to the training to make that possible. So those are some of the things that continue to come up, but we're overcoming them. And I think instead of seeing them as obstacles, we've seen them as challenges to better ourselves so our businesses in southern Minnesota can compete with anyone.
So you've obviously talked about all of these great things in rural Minnesota, the work ethic, all of the things that make small towns special. What are some things that really stand out to you that you see when you talk to constituents from rural areas?
Well, I think the sense of community in itself, a sense of connectedness to the past, but a sense of pride in that we're the inheritors of a legacy of a people who decided to carve a life out of the prairies. And I think there's a sense I think it's a sense of accomplishment, and I wouldn't say misplaced pride. It's a sense of who we are. We feed the world. We're figuring out new ways to power the world through biofuels, through wind. We're healing the world. Mayo Clinic and other places stretch throughout there. And I think those are not accidents. They didn't just happen to be in southern Minnesota or rural America. They wouldn't happen anywhere else but rural America. And that nature of it, I think, for me, I always keep that in mind. And I think it's educating people. Again, and not that there are incredibly wonderful attributes of urban America, and it makes it all part of that fabric. But I think this setting up that there's urban America, there's rural America and all that. We're different, we're unique, we're part of that whole fabric, but that uniqueness really makes us competitive. I think it really makes us draw, and not to mention, people choose to raise their families out here because of the quality of life that are inherent to that too. So I think, for me, recognizing that you can have vibrant, well-paying careers in smaller towns is something new. This idea that you'd always have to move away to the bigger city to get some of those things you wanted, and that was the trade-off. If you wanted to stay in a small town, you weren't going to be paid very well. There wouldn't be good affordable housing. You wouldn't have access to other things. That has changed, and that's not true in southern Minnesota. Technology, interconnectedness of high-speed broadband, and infrastructure that allows it to happen. And as I said, people making the choice to relocate their businesses to southern Minnesota for that workforce, for that work ethic, is a positive. So I'm excited about the potential for the future. I see us as a growth area.
Yes, certainly. I think my last question was if you had any additional thoughts or stories particularly that had come up as as you worked and ran in rural Minnesota. I think you covered some of that, but if there's anything else you'd like to bring up.
Well, and I just think the innovation that's happening, I mentioned some of the small towns around Austin and the work at the Hormel Institute of not only are we a major producer of agricultural products, we're curing cancer and some of the things that are out there. These are small towns that are able to do that. There's stories of a little bit of investment and some thoughts about how do you repurpose a small town that allows it to keep its character and keep its people there. Lanesboro and the Root River, investing in a Root River trail and understanding that outdoor activities, fishing, hunting, and biking and those types of things, $3.5 billion industry in Minnesota. That's economic growth plus a quality of life second to none. So I think people are finding ways that if the town's repositioned away from the railroad or something has changed in the business environment, people in southern Minnesota are resilient enough. They're finding new ways to go about that. And so it's exciting now when you go on Main Street, Lanesboro, all these stores are open, or Worthington, and you see an ethnic mix that's bringing in a new wave of immigrants on top of the past several waves that have come, creating a new way of life, new vibrancy, new businesses. It's exciting, and there's reasons to be optimistic. We just went through the worst economic downturn this country's seen since the Great Depression, and for the most part, rural Minnesota and southern Minnesota was able to weather that better than most parts of the country because of that type of thinking, that type of resiliency. So those who think that it's this inevitable march towards bigger, more urban areas or suburban areas, I think are missing the real movement that's happening out here. This vibrant economic base in smaller communities that give you that quality of life at the same time you can provide for your family.
If I could ask one more quick question that's not on the list. We're hoping to show this to rural developers, to people who are like hands-on working in rural Minnesota. And if you had anything you wanted to say to them, hopefully we'll be showing this at.
Yeah, coalitions. I can't say enough. Coalitions. And Minnesotans do this better than, that's not misplaced pride. I oftentimes, my colleagues think that every town is Mayberry or perfect in southern Minnesota, but what is right about it is our development organizations, our county commissioners, our city council, our state reps, and those working to build coalitions. And examples of that are partnerships to improve the corridor on Highway 14, partnerships to bring water on the Lewis and Clark Rural Water Project in southwest Minnesota. It's those coalition buildings, that ability to bring business community, labor, environmental interests, agriculture interests together for a common purpose. We get incredible things done. So I think what you're seeing happening in southern Minnesota is what people want to see happen here, working for the common good on common interests. And so I would stress to those groups who already do it, it's the air you breathe. Many of you, if it is these groups listening, many of them taught me this and showed me how this works. It is an incredible advantage and an incredible tool, and don't give up on it. The coalition building is our secret weapon in rural communities.
Great, thank you so much. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely.